All right, so our final presentation will be given by Puck Malamud, De-Escalation Skills.
Hello. I'm a short person also, so. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Puck, and this is a presentation on de-escalation. Quick show of hands. How many of you hate confrontation, especially being confronted by people who are visibly angry? Same. I have the tendency to shrink down when faced with people who are angry or yelling. But in our chosen career, it's inevitable that we're going to encounter a situation which we are called upon to de-escalate, whether it's angry parents in a school library, hurried faculty at a university, patrons or clients in any public or special library setting. And in this workshop, I'm going to introduce you to 3 key skills of de-escalation laid out in the book De-Escalate, How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less by Douglas Noll. Douglas Noll also contributed to a few of the slides to this presentation. And I want to be clear, starting out, that the goal in these interactions is to de-escalate, not to engage directly with any kind of shitty or oppressive content, no matter how shitty it is, because the point is to get a person who is about to escalate a situation to not do that thing. So, to start, my name is Puck. I'm just another aspiring librarian here at Simmons, and I read this book, De-Escalate, after hearing about it on a podcast called The Measure of Everyday Life, and I decided that the skills that Noll talks about in it need to be shared more widely. So who's this guy, Doug Noll? He started out as a lawyer and then jumped careers to become a mediator, eventually getting a degree in peacemaking and conflict studies, and co-founded a program called Prison of Peace, where he teaches the same skills laid out in De-Escalate to inmates in prisons. The Prison of Peace program was founded in March of 2010 after co-founder Laurel Kaufer received a letter from Susan Russo, a woman serving a sentence of life without parole, requesting conflict resolution training for a group of women serving life and long-term sentences at Valley State Prison for Women, VSPW, in Chowchilla, California. The policies of the Prison of Peace program require initial participants in each prison to be serving life or long-term sentences, with preference given to those serving sentences of life without parole. In this way, Prison of Peace creates cadres of trainers who are likely to remain in the institution long after others have been released, and equipping them with the skills to change their environment and pass those skills on to others. By resolving conflicts as peacekeepers and mediators, and by teaching those skills to their peers, Prison of Peace participants create durable and sustainable programs in their institution. So that's the background. Let's get into the content. Trigger warning on the next 3 slides for ableist language and generally mean words. So first of all, I'll present you with some examples of things angry people may say. Write down how you would respond if you have pen and paper handy, otherwise just think about it. So, and there's no need to share with anybody else, so just be honest of how you would actually respond to, what? You forgot the gift? I can't believe how stupid you are. So take a sec to respond to that. Next we have, would you stop doing that? It drives me crazy. And a final example, all you do is think about yourself. You never think about my feelings. So we'll come back to these at the end. The 3 skills we're going to cover are, first, how to ignore angry words. Second, how to guess at the emotions underlying those words. And third, how to reflect back those emotions with a simple you statement. I'll start with a caveat that this works best in in-person situations, but at the very least, you should be voice-to-voice with a person. A lot of the efficacy of this depends on tone, which, as I'm sure you all know, does not translate well over text. And the first 2 skills we'll cover go together. So first, ignore angry words. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what? Ignore the words? How's that going to help? Won't that make things worse if someone thinks I'm ignoring what they're saying? But the fact is that ignoring the words will protect you from getting activated or triggered yourself. People who are speaking from a place of anger aren't really listening to what they're saying. The words are secondary to trying to express the feelings they're having, and those feelings are what you need to focus on, not the words your interlocutor is choosing to use. Also, don't underestimate your brain's ability to multitask. You might not remember the exact phrasing somebody's using, but you'll actually remember more than you think you would. So how do we get the feelings the person is conveying? You might say, emotions are hard to read. I'm not going to be able to do this. But most people in the world have an innate capacity for empathy. If you've listened to the Invisibilia episode about mirror neurons, you have a bit more context for how it works biologically. I'm not going to get into that, though. The answer to your concerns here has a few layers. First, trust yourself. You're better at this than you think. Second, it actually doesn't matter if you're off on the first try, because often a person can tell that you're trying to connect with them. And finally, for all the wonderful human variety in the world, there's only a few fundamental emotions that you need to recognize. The nuances of feeling conveyed by non-English words like hygge or saudade that are so popular on lists of untranslatable words are actually less important than the basics in an escalated situation. So what are these basics? First, I need to introduce a few concepts in psychology. Sylvan Tompkins identified 9 core affects that are present at birth. Affects are physiological responses to neural firing. A feeling is an awareness of an affect, and a feeling and a memory of prior similar feelings is an emotion. The 9 core affects Tompkins identified are distress and anguish, the cry for help, interest, excitement, the pull toward mastery, enjoyment, joy, the social bond, surprise, startle, the reset button, anger, rage, the demand to fix it, fear, terror, the signal to flee or freeze, shame, humiliation, the self-protection signal, disgust, the need to expel, and dismell, the avoidance signal. Now, dismell isn't a common word, but it's the affect everyone experiences when they smell something gross, like rotting flesh or excrement. The negative of these affects, except probably dismell, underlie the common negative emotions we're likely to encounter. And these emotions come in layers. Anger, rage, frustration are the ones most likely to show up on the surface in a person who is escalating. Underneath those lie anxiety, fear, a sense of unfairness or of being unsupported or unheard, and underneath those, shame, humiliation, or embarrassment, and further down, sadness, grief, a feeling of being abandoned, alone, or unloved. When you encounter these emotions, you have to recognize the surface ones before you can or should dig deeper, and probably in a professional situation, digging deeper is not your job. So let's try identifying some emotions now. No endorsement for the medication in this ad. Pharmaceutical ads are just really great for practicing recognizing emotions. So watch the ad now, and ignoring the words actually being spoken, just notice the emotions the speakers are conveying through their face and their tone of voice.
Before fibromyalgia, I was active. I kept on top of things. I was energetic. Then the chronic, widespread pain drained my energy. My doctor and I agreed moving more helps ease fibromyalgia pain. She also prescribed Lyrica.
For some patients, Lyrica significantly relieves fibromyalgia pain and improves physical function.
With less pain, I feel better.
Lyrica may cause serious allergic reactions or suicide.
Okay, we're going to ignore the side effects. But what are some of the emotions that you spotted? Sadness, shame, disengagement. How about later on in the ad, right before the side effects? Relief. Nice. So, not bad. Go on. All right. So now that once you've identified the feelings that a person is presenting, it's time to reflect those emotions back. Now, some people say telling someone how they're feeling is rude and manipulative, and anyway, I don't know how to reflect back feelings or be empathetic or speak to someone's feelings rather than their words. And I don't know about you, but for most of my life, I've been told that it's important to use I statements when talking to people, because otherwise we're invading their bubble or being rude. Talking to someone with simple, direct you statements is totally counterintuitive. I get it. But folks on the listening end hear you statements as empathic. So for example, to an angry person, you're angry. For somebody who's frustrated, you are frustrated. Somebody who's sad, you are sad. Don't ask questions. Don't use that I statement. Keep it simple and direct. Be informal and conversational. And, of course, be authentic. Actually reflect back the emotions that you think that they're feeling in a sincere attempt to connect. Even something like, I can tell you're angry, centers you as a speaker rather than centering your interlocutor. Step one to bringing somebody down from an elevated emotional state is to show empathy for where they're at. Problem solving comes later. Telltales you've succeeded are a nod of the head, words like yeah, yes, exactly, dropping shoulders, or a sigh of relief. Somebody who's tense and getting ready for a fight, their shoulders are up by their ears. So if somebody drops their shoulders, you can tell that de-escalation is working. And an anecdote I have to share from Bryce Markell, who's an inmate at Valley State Prison. He says, last week I was called an idiot, and I felt disrespected by an inmate from our pod. Instead of firing back or getting physical, I recognized my feelings and emotions, waited long enough to set them aside, and responded with a calm voice and attitude with resolution mind. As soon as I reflected back that he is really pissed and I am an idiot, he quickly apologized for snapping at me and explained that he felt disrespected when I did not listen to what he had been trying to tell me. I then apologized for not listening, I did not mean to disrespect him, and told him that I would accept his apology and feel a lot better about the whole thing. The fact is, most people, in most situations, just want to be listened to deeply and authentically. And what that means is listening to the full emotional content of what they're saying, not so much the words. So with that in mind, how would you respond now to the 3 examples from the start of the presentation? What? You forgot the gift? I can't believe how stupid you are. And I'm reading these aloud because obviously the emotional content is what matters, not the actual text. Also, would you stop doing that? It drives me crazy. And finally, all you can do is think about yourself. You never think about my feelings. So, to recap, the 3 skills we've covered are how to ignore angry words, how to guess at the emotions a person is presenting, and how to reflect those emotions back with a simple you statement. Try practicing the skills either with a trusted friend or just in low-stakes social situations, and hopefully, when you're in an escalated situation, you'll have them handy. Any questions? Hey.
Thank you so much for that presentation. That was great. So I just have a question about how to de-escalate a situation where, rather than it being a person who is maybe frustrated that you didn't respond to their email or something like that, how do we respond to someone who is maybe a public patron who comes in and they're angry at you for having books on topics that they think are inappropriate for that library, or something like that. Something that comes across as more of an attack on an identity of a person rather than just, or the existence of a person, I would say, rather than just something that's fleeting.
Sure, yeah. So when it comes to something like a book challenge or somebody who's like, we don't want gays in our library or something like that, you're still especially if they're agitated and raising their voice, the first step is still to get them to a more calm state, and showing empathy is still the first step to doing that. And so if they're presenting as angry or frustrated, you say, you're angry, you're frustrated. And then if they really are trying to challenge a book, you can walk them through the challenge process. and explain, why the library collection development policy is the way that it is, but that's the problem-solving bit that comes after you've got them to a lower level of agitation. So I think the first step is always going to be the same. It's probably harder to empathize with somebody being shitty and oppressive, and I get that completely. But I think we can at least be able to empathize with the feeling itself of okay, I have felt angry in my life. I haven't felt angry about this because I'm not a bigot. But I felt angry, and so I can at least connect with that aspect of it. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
You were saying the invisibility episode, just what, you said some sort of...
Oh, it's called Mirror Neurons. I forget the name of the episode. Oh, thanks! Apparently it's already been tweeted. Invisibilia is great. They're coming back this week for another season.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I was just trying to get to the notes.
Yep, cool.
Thanks, Puck. I appreciate a lot of the tips that you've given. I want to say this in a way, it's difficult for me, but because I don't want to derail. But I personally feel very uncomfortable with taking a framework based off of working in an institution, an oppressive institution like a prison, and applying that to another institution like the ones that we are employed in or looking to be a part of. Specifically, I think about that a lot in the context, as probably everyone knows by every comment I have, I'm filtering all this through my own experience, obviously. And I work with students of color who are surveilled and repeatedly criminalized for expressing themselves in ways that don't fit what our expectations of a library or information commons space is supposed to reproduce in that setting. And it's difficult because I don't necessarily think that these skills that are being presented are bad. I mean, we do have to have some kind of way of functioning in this space together, an agreement. But I'm not able to maybe successfully put together exactly what it is. But my background is very much invested in prison abolition, and it's very difficult to kind of take a book like Prison, like a title like that, like Prison for Peace, or it's hard for me to kind of really take this message in right now. And I'm wondering if there are other models of de-escalation that are non-oppressive or not coming from sort of this placation of expression of rage. Obviously, I'm not advocating for us to just kind of go blow to blow with somebody, especially if they're coming in with some bigoted But I do find that it's hard because I have interactions with students where when we get through whatever's happening in that moment, we are people together, I find that I do have to put a lot of my own stuff to the side, but I'm willing to do that because I'm a white male presenting person, so that's what I'm invested in doing in that situation. And I don't know if I have a concrete way to bring this all together, but I just needed to express that publicly right now. And I'm wondering if other people have any ideas or want to talk about that, share that, because personally speaking, it's not something that I feel like I can co-sign on. If it's we had this amazing presentation that's talking about there's no space for rage in the academy and in some of these spaces, and I'm not looking for there to be a blowout every single time, but I'm wondering if there's ways that we can kind of think about how we hold these two things at the same time.
Yeah, so I'm coming at this in part as somebody who's interested in prison librarianship and also prison abolition simultaneously, which is a weird thing to hold at the same time. So I definitely feel where you're coming from. I will say I think that the Prisons of Peace project specifically was created at the request of an inmate, in part to gain some control over this oppressive environment that they were in, that they felt like they needed some kind of skills because the people in charge of that institution are not interested in supporting like mediation or peacemaking because it's an inherently violent and oppressive space. So that's my understanding of where that program came from, and it's definitely a difficult place to sit where like for people who like have to function inside oppressive institutions while also wanting to get rid of them. So I feel what you're saying.
Any other questions in the room or on Twitter?
I just wanted to throw a reading recommendation out there for anyone interested in Serge's line of inquiry. Anybody hasn't read it, Sarah Schulman's book, Conflict is Not Abuse, talks about how to balance the way that our culture overreacts to instances of interpersonal conflict and like social conflict. So barriers to like interpersonal mediation, like civil rights agitation, and underreacts to abuse and abuses of power, both interpersonally and systemically, and could be a way for people who want to take that conversation forward.
That's a great recommendation. Is it going to be tweeted? Thanks.
Hello. Okay. I just wanted to respond directly to Serge asking about different paradigms for de-escalation. With one that I know of, it's called Kid Power. It's called kidpower.org, and it's based more in self-care and empowerment, and a lot of it is aimed at young people. So it comes from a very different perspective than perhaps this one does, if that's something you want to look into.
So maybe a gap between that two.
All right, so thank you so much, Puck, for your presentation.